Please remember that this matter should be viewed as a solicitation to trade. Trading futures and options involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. You should therefore carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you in light of your financial condition. Optimus Futures LLC is not affiliated with, nor does it endorse any trading system, methodologies, newsletter, or similar service. We urge you to conduct your own due diligence.
Now, here's your host, founder and CEO of Optimus Futures, Matt Zimberg.
Hi guys, this is Matt Z from Optimus Futures, directly from the Optimus recording studios, and I wanted to talk to you today about increasing the size of your trades. Every trader went through that, and it's absolutely natural to think about it. If you trade, or if you didn't start trading and you're thinking about starting at one level, going to another. So I'm going to give you practical advice that would apply to people who started trading and didn't start trading, just to consider. Please make all your comments, or if you have questions, go to our community website. It's community.optimusfutures.com. Ask me any trading related question there, whether it's related to this podcast, software, execution, trading, anything. Don't care, I'll answer it. The truth is Jake answers it, not me. But I come there, I try to help. So let's talk about increasing your size, okay? Like I said, every trader thought about it. Everybody wants to go from 1 E-mini to 5 E-minis, from 1 gold to 10 gold, or if you're trading crude, you know, you're thinking of going maybe from 1 lots to 3 lots to 7 lots. And it's absolutely natural, again, like I said, to think of that, because obviously everybody's in trading to increase, possibly, I should say, potentially, to increase their account size, and they're thinking if they're going to increase the size of their trades, obviously their wealth might come faster. So I'm here to warn you against that kind of thinking, and also to give you practical advice how to do it the right way. Obviously, there is a point in time that you could increase your account, but I want you to consider all the variables that are involved. So the first thing that you have to think about is consider the psychological aspects of increasing the size of your trade. To be very specific, what you have to consider is the emotional response to performance. And what I mean by that, and when we talk about performance, it's not only positive performance, it's negative performance, it's the fluctuations of the account. So let's say you're trading one crude oil contract, right? And you're comfortable with it, and you go in and out, and you're comfortable with the risk and everything else. And at this point, you're starting to think, okay, maybe I should go to 2 contracts or 3 contracts or 4 contracts. And I understand that. But what you have to understand is that when you're in a trade, now instead of 1 tick, which is, I think, in crude oil, I know it's $10. Now every tick with 2 lots is $20, $30, $40. And that affects your way of thinking, and it affects your responses. So again, remember the word emotional response to performance. How are you going to react? Now, some people might get a little bit panicky. I'm not saying everybody will, right? It depends on your financial circumstances too, but you could actually have actions that are not related to your method, and they're just instinctive because you grew your size too fast, okay? So this is something to consider. So you will have psychological issues when you grow your account. This is why you have to do it slowly, right? You can't go from 1 lot to 5 lots. You have to understand along the way, you know, the psychological pressure that you'll be under, or at least put yourself under the laboratory test of your emotional response to performance. The second thing is drawdown pressure. Consider that every single methodology has drawdowns where people go through fluctuations in the account and it doesn't go in their favor, right? So now you have to consider that the performance, although you might have a good method, just remember during the bad periods, it might double, triple, or quadruple depending on, obviously, your method. And I'm talking about in terms of monetary dollars, okay? So that might have an effect on you as well. And you have to consider that. So you have bigger fluctuations both ways. And sometimes, you know, when some people and I'm not saying some people, as if some people have this weakness and some people have the strength, but I think it's, for majority of people, it's hard if they go through a losing period where they lose a lot of money. And it's hard for them to recover mentally from that. So they start relying more on their instincts and, doubling their size. So what you want to do is, obviously, like I said in variable 1 with the emotional responses, if you have drawdown pressure, you want to come back every day to the market new. You don't want to let it affect you. So do things slowly and gradually. You might be able to live one day with very big drawdown, still trusting your system, but obviously that has to come with time. So how do you do it right? Okay, so how do you actually want to increase the size? Again, this is my opinion. There are no guarantees in trading. Everything we do or everything I say is my opinion, and it's just my experience. So if you think otherwise, you're entitled to it. Again, just mine. So first of all, you have to consider your margin to equity, meaning that how much margin do you use relatively to equity? Now, I'm going to tell you something about margin. Margin is dictated by the CME, right? So the CME, or any exchange you trade, Osaka, Eurex, or anything like that. And they come up with this margin that they say, for this, this is what we want. And obviously that is just the legal one, right? This is just the legal margin they want you to hold out of your account. If you hold overnight, obviously that's what they want. Day trading is dictated by FCMs and brokers, but that's the case. So, but let's talk about margin for a minute. So what margin does have a certain indication because it comes from the exchange. It's based on a certain variable. Now, what you have to remember is that the CME puts those numbers based on what they want it to be, also based on their calculation. It's not indicative of the risk that's entailed in that contract. For example, if you look at contracts like natural gas, here comes the rain. Welcome to Florida. So if you have something like natural gas, you might have a margin of, let's say, $2,000, right? Or even a better contract. You have cocoa that comes 70% from the Ivory Coast. If there's a revolution over there, there's a margin. I don't know what the margin on cocoa is. I don't recall, but let's say it's $3,000, $4,000. It could jump. The prices could go up 5%, 10%. So the margin is one indication of a risk. But what's more important along with the margin, so you do consider margin to equity, but you also consider the volatility that could be in this account in that potential contract, right? So sometimes you would see, like, let's talk about the S&P, for example. So you can have one margin to equity. Okay, let's say that it's a day trading margin of, let's say, $1,000, just as an example. Some FCMs take 500, some less, some 1,000, some 2,000. But let's just look at 1,000. So let's say you have a $5,000 account or a $10,000 account, and now you're using day trading margin of 1,000 relatively to your account. Now, you also have to consider that there are periods in time that the contract will always stay for day trading 1,000, regardless of the volatility in the market. The FCM won't change it, the broker won't change it. So it's also your goal to see what is the right amount of contracts to trade for your equity, which is relative to the volatility. That's extremely important. If you hold overnight, you can look at the margin for the overnight, but also consider the risks associated with it. So I can't say that you can only look at margin to equity. You have to look at margin plus volatility to equity. Okay? That's one thing to consider when you're sizing up a contract. The second thing is there are two types of accounts, two types of approaches to size. One is fixed and one is variable. So the fixed one is where a trader says, look, I'm only going to trade one, or two. That's all they do. They go in with one, liquidate one, go in with one, liquidate one. And then there are traders who say, look, depending on the opportunity in the marketplace, in some situation I will use one, in some situation I will use three. So they go back and forth between fixed and variable. Now, let me emphasize something extremely important here. I do not advocate basing trades on a gut feel where you sit there and you say, I think this trade is better. I'm going to trade 3 lots. This trade is less. I'm only going to trade one. If you do not have the ability based on your gut, and I'm going to repeat it again, regardless of your experience, you do not have the ability to distinguish just based on gut on a trade that you should do 1 or 3. But I'm not opposed to variable trading, that it's some you use 1 and some you use more, or you might use 3 and 5. But I will tell you what it takes to do that. You need to grade your trade, meaning that if you always have the same setup, right? Like let's say you have a certain setup, then you should stick to the fixed. If you have a way to grade your trade, let's say 5 variables, certain volatility, certain setup, certain, percentage that it went up, percentage that went down, whatever the category is that you made up, if you have the ability to grade your trade, then I believe that you can approach both fixed and variable in terms of size. It does not mean that you go to extremes, because in every single trade that you do, even if you used a variable margin where you grade your trade, you have to consider the risk of ruin, right? What will happen if this trade will not go your way? At what risk management will you apply to stop the bleeding, right? So your account does not blow up just because you had one trade. And let me tell you this, over the years, I've seen amazing traders blowing up their account because of one trade. Day trades that turned into overnight and more emails back and forth saying, listen, this market will correct. It's overbought. I can't believe it's going up so much. I can't believe it's down so much. It must come back. Market must do anything. Market can stay overbought forever. It can stay oversold forever. So always consider the risk. Always consider the risk of ruin. And this is for your own. Remember, I always say that making money is always a byproduct of good risk management. If you're always just focused on the money and greed and fear, and when people say to me, listen, I can't afford to take this loss, then I know it's game over. If you have a $10,000 account and you're in a $6,000 loss and you're barely holding on to margin and you're thinking, okay, well, listen, I can't afford to take this loss right now, well, you'll end up taking it. Either the FCM will liquidate you, the broker will liquidate you, you'll have a margin call, or you'll just throw in the towel. So you don't want to get to that point, right? Again, I'm not criticizing anyone. I understand that when you start trading and human behavior and DNA takes over, it could affect your judgment and thinking. So please consider always the risk of ruin. Always have if you are going into the variable margin and size, always have a point where you say that you're wrong, and because you might be wrong within seconds. And you got to pull the trigger right away to say, okay, I was wrong, right? Always think that you have an opportunity with the next trade. That's as far as fixed and variable margin. What I always suggest to do, also when you're increasing your size, you have to have gradual increases that you actually adapt to, right? So let's say that you decided you don't have a scoring system for your trades and you have a fixed method, and now you're saying, okay, I'm going to go from 1 to 2, right? Don't go from 1 to 5, go from 1 to 2, right? You can't trade 1.5 contracts. Well, actually you can. You can do big and micro, but for the sake of the example, let's say you go 1 and 2. You have to do it gradually and see how you're used to it. If you're not used to it, go back to 1. Start over at some point, maybe when you become tougher mentally. And again, I'm going to tell you this. Trading is not an indication of your IQ, of your endurance, or your motivation. There's money at the end of the day, and on the line. And this is what causes your fears, right? It's psychological. So you have to overcome it. So don't try to be a hero, but rather respect the process that you actually have to adapt to it slowly. And again, it might take you 3 months, 6 months, or a year, or 2 years. It doesn't matter. The point is, if you want to be in this game for a long time, you shouldn't rush. So if you find that you went from 1 to 2, it's too much, go back to 1, try again later, and so forth. Again, you have your body, your mind, your behavior, your nerves, they have to get used to the fact that you're trading bigger size. Now, there are situations where a customer would also increase their account size, right? So, for example, they would go from, just as a hypothetical example, they will go from 25,000 where they traded 2 crude oils or 2 E-minis, 2 golds, 2 bonds. They want to trade in 50, right? Now they want to go to 50,000, and now they want to trade 4 contracts on each. So what you have, but nevertheless, you're still using the same method, same execution. So you also increased the size of your account, right? But you also added contracts. Now, 2 things happen at the same time. Monetarily, I mean, dollar-wise, you will still have higher fluctuations in the account dollar-wise, but relatively to the percent in the account, you might find that the percent is the same. So what I say is this, okay, which is really hard to do. You know, everybody will give you advice, do this and do that, and, you know, but I respect that it's hard to do some of those things that I request here, but nevertheless, I really believe in them. So when you have a bigger account, if you decided to deposit more money, you really have to look at the percentages. Let me give you an example, okay? Hypothetical example, and again, past performance is not indicative of future results, but let's say you have a 25,000 account and you're making a month, let's say $2,000, right? So it's 2,000 relatively, and your drawdowns are 1,000, right? So now there's a certain, it's a certain percent of the 25,000, and the drawdown is also, right? Or you might make, I don't know, $3,000 and you have a drawdown of 500 or 1,000, or it might be equal. But when you increase the size of your account, now understand that you might make, instead of 2,000, 4,000, but your drawdowns are 2,000, but your percent stays the same. So what I'm saying is that you need to focus, if you grow your account financially as well by adding money, and you also increase the size, you have to look at percentages more than money. If you only look at the money, it will affect you psychologically more. So I wish there was a way, you know, I keep on using the term here, psychology. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but I do understand the effects of fluctuations on accounts. So despite the fact that you put more money in percentages, it might stay the same. Many traders don't look at it that way. But what I'm trying to make is the conscious effort of you looking psychologically at your percent. Put more focus on the percent side, right? And that matters more. So let me give you an example. Let's assume, okay, you have a $25,000 account. You're making 2,000. You're losing 1,000. I mean, losing 1,000. I mean, your drawdown monthly is 1,000. Your earnings are 2,000. Now, let's say you added another 25,000. Right now, you're seeing that you're actually making $3,000, right? But your drawdown grew to 3,000 as well. So you're trading here a liquid market, but you're proportionally, because of your size, something has changed drastically. This is why, you know, if you focus only on the money, you're saying, well, I'm making more, but your drawdowns are bigger, right? So the drawdowns could affect you more in the future. So your drawdowns now had a tendency to grow, right? And in future months, they could grow more while your performance is not being enhanced or getting better. So the focus on percent is extremely important. It will make you go and revise your system over and over again. So again, follow the percentage P&L, not your dollar P&L. In percentage terms, right? If you trade larger account, it doesn't mean that you necessarily, again, in percentage-wise, are taking more risk. Monetarily, yes. Percentage-wise, you want to keep it the same as you did before if you had performance. That's basically it, right? What I'm asking you is, in conclusion to all of this, what I'm trying to say is that the human mind really needs to reprogram itself and accept new levels, right? What you have to do is minimize your fear and minimize your internal resistance, right? And basically accept that you are, now you have to accept that you're trading at new levels. And that is the most important thing, is to do things in a gradual manner, letting your human mind, again, reprogram itself, getting used to the fact that you're trading a bigger size and hopefully becoming calmer as with the new size. everybody who increases size, everyone will have a new level of nervousness. Even if they've been trading for 10 years, even if they grew their level from year 1 to year 10, right? They grew it all the time. Don't think that from 10 year to year 11, there will be, now I can just keep on increasing it. But it becomes easier for them because they understand the process. For everybody else, this process of adapting to new levels might take different times, right? There is an internal resistance to growth of accounts and size. So for some people, it might take 3 months, it might take you 6 months, or it might take you 2 years to get used to the new level. That is up to you. Everybody has a certain level of tolerance. Everybody thinks differently. There are people that it doesn't affect them as much. There are people that it does affect them more. But the last thing that you should do is try and be some sort of an ideal model of how it should be and force it on yourself. So for example, if you go from 1 contract to 2 contracts and it doesn't feel natural to you, right? It doesn't feel good yet, right? Go back to 1, it's fine. If you went from 2 to 4 and 4 doesn't mean natural, or to 3, it doesn't feel natural, go back to 2. So make it natural every single time, and to the point where you get to the level that you're comfortable with. Now, I'm going to tell you this. Your goal in trading is to win and make money, right? That is really your goal. It doesn't mean that you can trade in every single level. There could be a level that you have to get used to and say, you know what? I'm comfortable with this level. It's fine, right? That's what it is. You shouldn't feel any less. If you're trading 5 lots of E-mini or 10 lots of E-minis, and you know somebody who trades 50 lots of E-minis, you shouldn't look at that and say, at yourself as weakness. Not at all. Some people can't even get to that level. So whatever your achievements are, it's very important to look at anything. This is just general in life. Not always look at what people write on forums, that I trade this or I trade that. Because first of all, you don't know if they're really doing it. They could be in their own fantasy la la land. I've seen forums have become a land of fantasy for many people to create their own persona over there or whatever they want. So just remember, it's your own personal achievement, and it's very important to keep it that way. That's it for now. This is Matt Z from Optimus Futures. If you have any comments about this podcast, please go to community.optimusfutures.com. Please post your questions there. Anything else, I'll try my best to answer them. You can provide value to the community. You can write your own experience. And of course, I always welcome your business here at optimusfutures.com. We have many clearing firms, many platforms. We can help you. We can reduce, commissions for you if you're paying too much. We could give you better technology, better service. We're good at what we do, and we look forward to doing business with you. We never take your business for granted. We know that you have a lot of choices. I wish you a very good weekend. Today is a Friday. I don't know what day you're listening to it, but today is a Friday. If you're listening during the week, I wish you a great trading week. If you're listening to this on the weekend, I wish you a phenomenal weekend with your loved ones. All the best. This is Matt Z from Optimus Futures.
Please remember that this matter should be viewed as a solicitation to trade. Trading futures and options involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. You should therefore carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you in light of your financial condition. Optimus Futures LLC is not affiliated with, nor does it endorse any trading system, methodologies, newsletter, or similar service. We urge you to conduct your own due diligence.